we have rules, right, about how we can talk about different neighborhoods and whatnot. And actually, I hate it. You know, I grew up in Ewa Beach, live in MILILANI. I mean, for this video specifically, or just being like a local guy, right? I think people like that. Oh shoot, wrong button. Not, I'm like from the mainland, but grew up in Hawaii, military, came back. You know what I'm saying? Like it would be a
share exactly how you.
Yeah, it would be a crime, but we have to keep it somewhat broad in general for this video because there are other people that watch it, and you know, I want to stay within ethics, but also the main point is like providing as much value as you can for people and really helping people get set up, right? So anyways, we'll figure it out. Okay guys, so in this video we're gonna go over MILILANI versus Ewa Beach, or EWA, the 96706 versus 96789, which is MILILANI. We actually had one of our viewers ask about MILILANI versus Ewa Beach. There's a bunch of things we can go over, so let's dive into it. One of the first things is the traffic. Traffic coming from MILILANI is a little better, maybe a little less worse than the traffic coming from Ewa Beach. It's morning traffic. You're going towards town or towards Honolulu. The morning traffic, there are two arteries. There's the H2 going north, the H1 coming from the west side, and then they merge right there before Pro City. So coming from Ewa, that traffic is worse. There's just more people coming from the west side, coming from Kapolei, Makakilo, Kunia, Ewa, Waipahu, and they all back up right at that merge where the people from the H2 are coming down. I know that if my friend in Ewa Beach leaves his house at the same time as I leave my house in MILILANI at, say, at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m., I know that I'm going to hit that merge sooner and I'm going to get through that sooner. So after that, you keep going past Aiea, it opens back up. Now there's two ways again. There's two ways. You can go Moanalua Freeway or you can stay on the H1, and then traffic backs up in town again at the Moanalua Freeway and H1 merge over by Kalihi. Point being is the traffic in MILILANI currently is a little better, not as bad as the traffic coming from Ewa Beach. So if you're coming from deep Ewa Beach, like the neighborhood of Ocean Point, all the way to Aloha Tower, that's where pretty close to the federal building, that's where the Coast Guard Prevention Department is, and the Coast Guard District are all there at the federal building. We'll have Kenji pull up one of the like Google traffic estimator things at 7 a.m. and see what it says. Right now, with current traffic patterns from Ewa Beach to Aloha Tower at 7 a.m. is about an hour. Now coming from MILILANI to Aloha Tower, 42 minutes. You know, another thing that can help you no matter where you live is to have an electric vehicle. Confirm these things with the state authorities and stuff yourself, but in Hawaii we have a zipper lane. So the zipper lane allows for basically a better carpool lane where you go straight from the west side from that H1, H2 merge, or even further back potentially from like Waikele, all the way to town uninterrupted in your own carpool lane. So first thing being traffic. If you're comparing Ewa Beach and MILILANI, MILILANI's traffic currently is not as bad as Ewa Beach. Castle and Cook is building a community called Koa Ridge. It's going to add about 10,000 people to the Waipio area, right next to, you know, above, in between Costco and MILILANI. It's going to be this huge community. There are going to be thousands and thousands of more vehicles. I'll be interested to see how that affects traffic patterns, and if coming from MILILANI starts to feel similar to coming from Ewa Beach. I don't think it'll be quite as bad because if you live in Ewa Beach, you also have all those people all the way from Makaha, all the way from the west side that you're joining in that commute. Even with the 10,000 people added to Koa Ridge, I don't think that traffic will quite get as bad as Ewa Beach, but it will get worse than it is today, eventually. It'll probably be 5 to 10 years before that happens, but it is something I want you guys to be aware of. Please, 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 for my real estate colleagues that watch my videos and whatnot, please know that yes, while I'm walking a fine line here, I'm not breaking the rules. I'm bringing my clients and my viewers value, and that's by talking about schools and neighborhoods. We'll just have our video team bring up the school ratings for the different elementary schools that are common in these communities. Just because a rating is higher or lower doesn't mean that's going to be representative of a better school for your child. You know, for example, just down the street here, Keone'ula Elementary in Ewa Beach. I believe it's on schooldigger.com. It's rated in the 70s out of 196 or something schools. So 70 something out of 200 in Hawaii. That school may not be rated as high as MILILANI Mauka Elementary, where my wife teaches. But I've also heard from one of my clients who formerly taught at that school that they have a great outdoor program and that they really like the new principal. And the outdoor program involves like farming and learning how to grow vegetables. So school ratings are just that. I'm not going to tell you that one school is better than the other. I'm not going to tell you that you should move to a certain area because of a school. Some clients don't want to live in the areas with the high-rated schools because they feel that that doesn't fit their culture and demographic, and they don't want to be around those sorts of schools. That's up to those clients. Again, I'm not steering anyone based off of schools to a certain neighborhood. I'm just providing information that can be easily searched on the internet. So let's go. Let's talk about schools. In Ewa Beach, the two of the big schools are Keone'ula and Holomua. Keone'ula is where you might find your children if you live in Ocean Point or in certain parts of Ewa Gentry. Keone'ula is an elementary school that's pretty common for newcomers, because newcomers to the island tend to like the more modern suburbs in Ewa Beach. And that's why they choose Ewa Beach, because they want that newer, more modern house. And Ewa Beach is some of the most recent construction on the island with Ewa Gentry, Ocean Point, Haseko Homes, all of those sorts of things. Holomua is another school which I believe, according to schooldigger.com, is rated pretty similar to Keone'ula. But if we jump and look at MILILANI, there's an array of ratings for their elementary schools. My wife is a teacher at MILILANI Mauka Elementary. According to schooldigger.com, that elementary school is rated 7th in the state. MILILANI Ike, which is also in MILILANI Mauka, is rated 3rd. Okay, I got corrected. I thought it was 4th. Schooldigger.com rates MILILANI Ike number 3 for elementary schools in the state. And then when you go to MILILANI Town, which is the other side of the freeway on the other side of MILILANI Mauka, the schools range anywhere from in the 90s for Kipapa Elementary to higher for MILILANI Uka Elementary. And there's also MILILANI Waena Elementary. Now, I cannot stress this enough. I'm not telling you to move anywhere based off of schools. I'm just sharing information that I may share with a client to say, this is public information that you can search on schooldigger.com. You can make decisions based off of that. If you'd like to have conversations with local people or have offline conversations about our experience and why we chose to live in MILILANI with our children, then we could go over those things. I grew up in Ewa Beach and I live in MILILANI, so I would say I have some, credibility in talking about this topic. Okay, so now that we navigated those treacherous waters, the next thing we'll talk about weather. There's a distinct difference between Ewa Beach and MILILANI. MILILANI is just generally cooler than Ewa Beach. So in the summertime, if your air conditioner was broken and you were driving home to Ewa Beach or MILILANI, in Ewa Beach it would be hot. Coming from town, you'd be hot. And then when you got to Ewa Beach, maybe you'd be even a little hotter. It's the largest plain on the island, so there's not mountains in Ewa Beach. It's a big flat area. That's why previously it was filled with sugarcane and corn plantations and things of that nature. It's really hot in Ewa Beach compared to most of the island. It might be the hottest place on the island. We'll fact check that and maybe bring up a little thing on the screen. I think it's the hottest place on the island, along with Kapolei. Ewa Beach, Kapolei, they're essentially the same thing in terms of weather. We'll make a separate video on Kapolei later. Let us know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. And we'll tell you all about Kapolei and Makakilo and how they're very similar to Ewa Beach, but they're also very different. For MILILANI, the weather, it's generally cooler. When I'm driving home from town to MILILANI and I'm choosing to keep my windows open, and sometimes I do this just as an experiment to feel how much cooler it is. When you take the H2 cutoff in the afternoon, say it's 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you go past Waipio, past Costco, there's a couple of dips, gulches. So when you reach that last gulch before the MILILANI Mauka cutoff, and you go down into this gulch, you probably feel like a 5 degree to 8 degree temperature difference. It just gets a lot cooler as you get to Mililani. Wahiawa is even cooler. So if you're moving to Hawaii and you're one of those people who wants to be in Hawaii or is PCSing to Hawaii, or for whatever reason you don't like heat and you're afraid, you're concerned about the temperature in Hawaii and how it's going to be hot and miserable, Mililani might be your preference just based off of weather. Now with that, there is some nuance. So Mililani town and Mililani Mauka are separated by the freeway, but I find that Mililani Mauka is even a little cooler than Mililani town, and that brings me to my next point, which is the rain. So in Hawaii, we judge seasons, seasons are represented by a couple of things: dry season and rainy season, so summer and winter, and also the waves. South Shore is bigger in the bigger in the summer, and in the winter country, you get big winter swells that bring the most famous surf in the world. But in terms of the rain, Mililani Mauka is even rainier than Mililani town, and Mililani as a whole is a lot rainier than Ewa Beach. So I'm here in Ewa Beach, that's where our office is, and I live in Mililani, and sometimes in the winter I drive to Ewa Beach and it's sunny and it looks like it's been sunny for weeks, and my car is all dirty, remnants of mud and dirt because I live in a rainy area. My broker is probably looking at me like,
"Brad, clean your car. Why are you driving a dirty car around?"
But in Mililani, it's just rainier. It just is. The rain generally comes over the east side, the Ko'olau mountain range, and it sweeps over to, the Mililani areas, the valleys that we're tucked into. In terms of the heat in Ewa Beach, I went to Campbell High School. There's a modernization effort going on where they're adding air conditioners to these rooms and to the school, but it was hot. Like, you start school in Hawaii, you start school in early August. It's the hottest place on the island. No air conditioner. There's this oscillating fan for 30 kids packed in a room, and you're supposed to learn. That was tough for me. That's not saying it's a bad school and you base your housing and decisions off of it. I'm just sharing a personal experience. In Mililani, it's cold sometimes. In the mornings, in the winters, there's some days where it's like 60 degrees in the morning. Now, for some of you might think that's ridiculous that that's cold, but after you've lived here for long enough, 60 degrees is pretty cold, especially when it's windy. Okay, so another thing would be the cost to live in both areas. In terms of food and things of that nature, Hawaii is just expensive. If you're able to go to the commissary, definitely do it. I don't know anyone who doesn't have a Costco or a Sam's membership, especially if they have a family, maybe some single people. But food's expensive in Hawaii. That's not going to change a ton. Gas is expensive in Hawaii. That's not going to change a ton. By commuting a shorter distance and less time in the car, you may save some on commute costs. But the bigger thing is the cost of housing. So it's a common thing for my clients coming from the mainland, and even with some of our viewers, as we can see, do I live in Mililani or Ewa Beach? And they have to decide, do I want maybe a newer, more modern home that's even bigger for $800,000? Or do I want to move to Mililani, pay more for the house, older construction, and possibly even a slightly smaller square footage, or at least maybe not as modern of a layout? So the homes in Mililani town were built in the 70s and 80s. Culture, architecture, preferences just weren't what they are today. So the floor plans don't flow the same. Your windows might be jealousy windows in Mililani town. Even in Mililani Mauka, where the construction is more modern, built in the 90s and 2000s, but still not a 2015 or 2020 Ewa Beach build, or even a 2010 build in Ewa Beach. In Ewa Beach, you're going to have central air conditioning on most houses. Not all houses, definitely not in the older parts of Ewa Beach, but when we're talking the new, more modern suburbs, the homes typically have central air. In a place like Mililani Mauka, the home might be more expensive, might be smaller, and you're going to have window air conditioner units or split. Not very many homes, even in that community, have central air. For me, I'm getting, next week, Wednesday, actually, we just scheduled for a split air to be put in the home that I just purchased in Mililani Mauka, and I actually prefer it. The guy said that it's only going to cost about $1 a day to run each unit, and I can also segregate which room. So if I know I'm really not going to go into my bedroom until tonight, with the split air conditioning system, I just cool the areas I'm going to be in. So people in Hawaii might build a new, beautiful $2 million home and still do split air over central. So it's just a different thing with the lack of extreme weather that we have and our culture. split air is a decent option, but it is something you're going to see in MILILANI versus EWA Beach. And if that's important to you to have central air, then EWA Beach might be the spot. And then there's daily life in each one of these communities. EWA Beach is filled with suburbs, especially when we're talking newer EWA Beach, but even older EWA Beach, it's a lot of houses, a lot of neighborhoods, and then you have your shopping centers. MILILANI is not too different. A bunch of communities and sub-communities within the greater MILILANI area, and then you have your designated shopping centers. One thing that comes to mind that's very different is in MILILANI you have 7 rec centers. These rec centers are a big selling point or even a big renting point for a lot of people. 6 of them have swimming pools, and the other one's kind of a party rental place where they have yoga and they have certain things, but it's mostly, if you're gonna rent it, it's because you're throwing some large event. Of the 6 swimming pools, you take a place like my favorite rec center, which is Rec 7, and Rec 7 has a Starbucks, it has a basketball, volleyball court, multi-use court, heated swimming pool, jacuzzi, playground for the kids. Oh, at that Starbucks you can get shave ice, a computer area. I mean, EWA Beach doesn't typically have those things. Now there are communities that have their own little community center. So take a townhome community like Spinnaker Townhomes in Ocean Point. They have their own swimming pool. Some of these communities have their own conference room area or gathering room area that you can rent. But the community as a whole, the whole zip code doesn't have all of these rec centers and things that you can use. In MILILANI, you have the splash park at Rec 4. At Rec Center 1 or Rec 1, you have these slides that are really cool. MILILANI is just, there's a bunch of trees, the weather's cooler. Daily living is a little bit different. There's not Fort Weaver Road in EWA Beach. So in EWA Beach, you have this big, like a mini highway. At points, it's 3 lanes on each side, so it's 6 lanes dividing the community. In MILILANI, you don't have that. You do have the freeway that runs through it, but once you're in MILILANI town or you're in MILILANI Mauka, the main dividing road in MILILANI Mauka is Mehe'ula. And Mehe'ula is just a nice tree-lined street, 2 lanes on each side. In MILILANI town, there is Kamehameha Highway. It's not dividing the whole community in the same way that Fort Weaver is dividing EWA Beach. It's hard to explain. So for restaurants, for my wife and I, we like to go to Asagio's in MILILANI. Like if we want a nicer dinner, but we don't want to drive too far, it's an Italian restaurant that has good food. There's the town center there where we can eat and let the kids run around. But you know what? EWA Beach has something similar to it. At Kamakana Ali'i, the shopping center there, the mall, you can eat outside and let your kids run around. And it's actually the newest and maybe nicest mall on the island, but it's also all outdoors. So your shopping there is great as long as the heat is bearable. In terms of a gym, MILILANI, you have access to 24-hour fitness, the UFC gym. You're really close to Schofield if you're military, and the gym there, the commissary there. You can shoot to Waipio or Pearl City pretty easy for CrossFit. There's jiu-jitsu gyms. There's probably 5 Brazilian jiu-jitsu and MMA gyms around. So in MILILANI, there's a lot more options for things like that. EWA Beach, I don't know if there's a jiu-jitsu gym in EWA Beach anymore. There used to be one. Doesn't come to mind. Is there a gym in EWA Beach?
24 at
Kamakana. Yeah, so that's your Kamakana Ali'i. There is a 24-hour fitness. Kamakana it's EWA Beach / Kapolei. And there's also the Croc Center. The Croc Center is an amazing place with all kinds of cool stuff. It's not the same as the MILILANI Rec Center, so it's just a different thing. But the Croc Center has a ton of cool stuff. I left out the YMCA in MILILANI. That's a cool place that a lot of people go to. So in EWA Beach, you're dealing with 24-hour fitness and the Croc Center. In MILILANI, you're dealing with UFC gym, 24-hour fitness, a bunch of martial arts gyms. If you do live in EWA Beach, it's not too far for you to go to Waikele for the UFC gym there. So there's that. In terms of daily living, I think it's just your preference. If you like going to the beach a lot, or you're only going to be here because you're PCSing for a few years and you want to access the beach constantly, EWA Beach is closer to the beach. Or EWA, Kapolei, you get to Barbers Point or to Halbush. I believe the real name is One'ula Beach Park. You get to those places really quick. If you live in Ocean Point, you can, depending where you are, you just walk to the beach. One of the things about access to the beach, I grew up in EWA Beach. I grew up in West Loch. My dad would take me to the beach every day. I grew up surfing almost daily. Even when the waves weren't good, I just went and hung out at the beach because that's what my friends and I did. In MILILANI, a little bit harder. There were a couple of kids who came from MILILANI to surf every day, but now being a father who wants to take his kids surfing, I do find that a little harder in MILILANI. I come home from work and, selling houses and doing all the things I do, and it's 4:30 p.m. By the time I load up, make it to Barbers Point or make it to the North Shore or whatever, we're not gonna have too much sun left. So EWA Beach just makes it easier for daily ocean activities. For weekend trips and whatnot, MILILANI is great because it's central to everything. You can get to town, you can surf Ala Moana, surf Haleiwa, surf Barbers Point, surf the west side, all in about the same amount of time, all in about 25 minutes. So in summary, EWA Beach versus MILILANI, it's really going to depend on you. Most people start to understand pretty early in their search what they're looking at. You'll look at school districts and make your decisions on what's conducive to your lifestyle and to your preferences and how you raise your children. Traffic, you have your own tolerance for traffic. It may be that one spouse commutes, the other one doesn't, and you really value square footage. So EWA Beach is the way to go. That's a very common outcome for the people that we help get set up here on the island and buy homes. In terms of daily living, I actually have a client flying in next month that wants to be within a half-mile of the beach. You just can't accomplish that in MILILANI. You can barely accomplish it in EWA Beach, but we're gonna do our best to try. So that's a wrap. Moving to Oahu with Derek Okahashi, MILILANI versus EWA Beach. Thank you for all the feedback. Keep it coming. We're gonna make more videos. Let us know what neighborhoods you wanna see next. Let us know what topics you wanna hear next. And we'll see you guys on the next one.